Welcome to The Fix. This is, of course, the time where we look at the weekend newspapers, and to help me make sense of the headlines, I'm joined by political reporter Samkele Maseko, as well as economist Duma Gqubule. It's always interesting to look at the papers through the eyes of a non-journalist. Yes. And given the fact that Tito Mboweni is going to be making that all-important statement, is, of course, going to be the big story of next week. But let's start with the dominant story, Samkele. You must now be sick and tired of covering the DA, but we haven't resolved key positions in the DA. I asked my panelists earlier who they think will lead the Democratic Alliance, and they all said John Steenhuisen. The weekend papers are speculating, both City Press and Sunday Times. Who do you put your money on?
Sure. Difficult one. I think there are three contestants. John Steenhuisen, one, can't rule him out, he's always wanted it, and he was positioning himself to take over from Mmusi Maimane, whilst inevitably using Mr. Maimane, whilst he was still the chief whip and Mr. Maimane was still the leader. He never came out in full support of Mr. Maimane. He did come out, bash the IIR, but didn't bash the people who were behind the campaign in the IIR, which is Helen Zille, whom he voted for in the Federal Council. So I think he needs this job more than anybody else in the DA, looking at all of his personal issues surrounding him. You'd also remember at the time where he wasn't paying tithings to the Democratic Alliance, Zwagele Mngqango was complaining. He was still a member of the Democratic Alliance in the province of KZN. Mmusi Maimane had to step in and Ethel Trello.
What about Mbali Ntuli? She's touted as somebody that could head up the party. Will she really have the support of people like Helen Zille? She's been at odds with her. I mean, Zille is firmly in control of the structures of the party as federal chair.
I don't think Mbali would win. I like her. I speak with her sometimes. But I don't think so, because you've got Zwagele Mngqango, the KZN leader, who's also been touted by the Black Caucus within the Democratic Alliance to run for interim leader of the DA. Then you've got John Steenhuisen, who hails from KZN. In my last conversation with Zwagele, he hadn't made up his mind, because, in his words, he didn't think it would be wise to contest John Steenhuisen, because they come from the same province. He would effectively be dividing his own home province. So it would be tactical for him to withdraw and support John Steenhuisen. But you've also got a dark horse in the form of Ellen Winde. Don't rule out Ellen Winde, because what the Institute of Race Relations has basically done, they've thrown the DA in a tailspin. They've influenced the DA politics. They've taken over the Democratic Alliance. So whoever the IRR has endorsed, don't put that out on the back burner and just say, no. When Helen Zille was the leader of the DA, she was the Premier of the Western Cape. They've made it pretty clear they don't ever want to lose the Western Cape. They don't care about the rest of the country in what they have done over these past few weeks. They just want to remain in the firm grip of the Western Cape. So why not have your man at the helm of the party to make sure that we don't lose track of that?
Duma, in terms of looking at DA politics, which is not necessarily something that you do all the time, but if you look, for example, at the economic stance, the slogan, equal opportunity for all, they claim to be non-racial, or at least the faction in the Zille camp. But you can't be non-racial if you're not anti-racist. Otherwise, you just amount to a race denialist, isn't it?
Definitely.
How does that figure in terms of what the DA can put on the table for a black voter to buy into this party as a party that could represent them, given the massive exclusion of black people from our economy?
You know, Karima, last year I went to an investment conference in the Eden District in George, and all of them are what you call DA municipalities.
Yes.
And I, for the first time, became aware that there is a social democratic wing of the Democratic Alliance. There's about 9 mayors in the area, and the one who was head of the district, Memory Boyson, he was from the South African Communist Party, and all the other mayors had defected from the ANC. So I saw that there is a social. So I believe that what Zille and the IRR are putting forward, and Gwen Mahlangu, it's like an extreme right-wing policy that I think will have no favor with the black voters. And I think there is I was talking to one of the political analysts on Friday, and he says you could see like Herman Mashava come up with a populist nationalist what do you call it, populist nationalist party that will eventually go into alliance with the EFF. But I do think that there is a social democratic wing of the DA. I think it must get its voice. It's a very interesting addition to our politics if we have that type of party.
Samkele, I know that you are set to have an exclusive interview with Mr. Maimane. Do you think he's going to form a new party? And more importantly, who are his likely allies to be? I know COPE got very excited. And of course, it would make sense for the Social Democratic wing of the DA or the former DA to, hook up with COPE. What about someone like Bantu Holomisa? Would he become partners with Mmusi Maimane? I mean, we have smaller parties that are dominated by very strong individuals. So, I mean, will they serve under Mmusi Maimane, or will Mmusi Maimane serve under anybody else in a reconfigured, new party made up of bits of what is there on the table at the moment?
2 minutes is a long time in South African politics. It's no longer 24 hours. That's a long time in South African politics. 2 minutes is a long time. You can't confirm where the direction of this country is going. But one thing that is for certain, which you can say, is that South Africa is moving towards a far left and a far right political spectrum.
Yeah.
You've got the ANC, whom is quoting the IFP, they're quoting one another to form a national coalition. One thing about Herman Mashaba and Mmusi Maimane is it's pretty clear. They've got no future in the Democratic Alliance. They've both served the DA, as Elenator with divorce papers. Whatever they are planning will be centralized around Herman Mashaba. Herman Mashaba will be a hook. Because if you were to ask an ordinary South African, what does Mmusi Maimane stand for? Some will say they don't know. Just like our colleague here, he just shook his head.
Well, what does Herman Mashaba stand for?
Herman Mashaba stands for what he has done in Johannesburg. He has changed from what he once was as a businessman. He is seemingly leaning towards the far left of South African politics. What used to be the South African Communist Party, the vanguard of the people, of advocating for the people. Look at what he's done in Johannesburg. Never mind that he's a businessman. Never mind his views on xenophobia.
I must tell you, I disagree profoundly with you. What Herman Mashaba has done is incite xenophobia and blame other poor African migrants for the fact that he's not able to create local growing economies in townships. Duma?
Yes, I live not far from the city centre, and I can tell you, Karima, it's a complete mess since Mashaba came, but he's not entirely to blame. The ANC as well was mismanaging the city. But I would say that Herman is not like a left person, but that doesn't mean he can't form an alliance with the left. I think Herman is definitely a right-wing person. That's where his instincts are.
But he's a populist.
He's a populist xenophobe. Let's put it out there, yeah. So he's a xenophobe, and if he's going to have a party, there will be another split within that party between Maimane's wishy-washy politics and his politics.
Okay, so the DA is going to keep us busy for a long time. So let's move to other stories that have caught your attention. Duma, we've got the medium-term budget policy statement that's going to be released on the 29th. Any interesting pieces in one of the papers that caught your eye that gives us a sense and a peek into what Tito is going to be saying?
There was very little in the papers about, given how important this budget statement is.
They're keeping their chest dry.
There was one by Hilary Joffe in the Business Times. It was a very interesting take on the whole issue of what's going to happen to the budget. But basically she's saying that if we don't have economic growth, our fiscal situation will collapse. And that is, I agree 100%. But now the million-dollar question is, how do we create economic growth? And let me just say something. Tito Mboweni and Treasury, they only know one thing. It's called structural reforms and austerity. And I can guarantee you that's what they will serve for us again. And it will not get our economy out of the situation in the short term.
Samkele, speaking about Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, he is in the Sunday World today for anything but the medium-term budget policy statement. And of course, he joins Minister Mantashe. It's a typical, tabloid story. But what do you make of it? And what do you make of our politicians getting caught up in this kind of salacious details of their public lives?
Look, it's not surprising. we all know what's...
What is not surprising? That it's in the papers, or that what this woman is claiming is happening?
It's not surprising what powerful men do, exactly, because not just powerful men. It's not surprising at all, knowing what you may know as political journalists, the lives of politicians, what they do, these parties that they go to. We've seen the phenomenon of blessers in the country. I'm not saying either one of them is a blesser, but it's a scourge that is out there within the South African domain of older men, particularly whether they're in business, politics, dating younger girls, flashing money around. We see the lifestyles that some of the young women live. But it's not surprising at all, and it's not the first time that the Sunday World has Tito Mboweni in a love scandal on their front page. They had one about a few weeks ago. There's another one. I'm just surprised to see the Minister of Mineral Resources, Gqubule Mantashe. But what is more surprising is there is a section of Mantashe's comments and responses which is rather alarming, about payments of about 70,000 to journalists to get the story to go away. For me, that speaks about how this industry is really in trouble.
Okay, we've got to wrap up, guys. I think you're leaving us with something really important, the fact that politicians are actually paying journalists to make stories go away, throwing their political weight around and trying to bully people. And that's, of course, something in Media Freedom Week that we should reflect on. Well, that's your fix for this week. Take care. See you again next week, and thank you for watching.